really
cool is this?
exciting. Listen, I feel like we are at the finish line of something that we've been talking about for so long. It's our first Daughters of the Galaxy show, Ashley.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so excited and I'm so happy to be sharing this with you. And
Yes, yeah.
honestly, it's an amazing lineup of ladies that we get to talk about throughout this series, and I couldn't be more excited. So, welcome everybody to our premiere episode of the
Yay.
Daughters of the Galaxy. I am Ashley Brienzo, one of your co hosts,
Yep, my name is Jamie Graham, and I am so excited to be here.
and we couldn't be happier to be discussing all these amazing ladies in Star Wars with all of you. And I know we may know some of you, and we can't wait to talk about this with you guys. Hi, Jeff. Jeff is in the chat, and we'll just wait a little bit. And Sarah, nice to see you. Thank
Yay.
you.
Hi.
Oh, yay!
Oh, this is so fancy. It shows up in everything. That's
Right?
wonderful.
Bougie. Yeah. Oh, it's so
Quite the
exciting.
glow up. Listen, you asked me to cover one show, and now I'm here, and I'm like, I will never be cooler than this. Mom, I've made it. I made it.
So we're gonna, for those who don't know us, we're gonna introduce ourselves a little bit so you'll get to know us and where we come from and what we do and how much of a bunch of nerds we are.
It's only an hour-long show, Ashley. We
Only
only have an
one long
hour.
show, but we'll give you a smidgen over the course of this. So we want to remind you to connect your Facebook to StreamYard so we can display your comments in the chat and give you a shout out on screen like the Virtual Cantina Network here. That's Dave behind the scenes, and we got our producer in the chair, Mr. Mark Von Olin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark is my co-host on Rebels Revisited, and today and going forward on the show, he is our producer. So how cool is that? Love it.
Good
So
stuff.
yeah. So we're just gonna go through a little bit about us and get you guys to know us a little better. My name is Ashley. I am an artist. I've done some work for Lucasfilm and Top since 2018. So I worked under Mark, creating the sketch cards for the Topps trading card sets for a number of years and until Mark moved on, and I still do that. Getting back into the swing of things, and I, travel around to Comic Cons and make art and be creative and I love that stuff. Yeah, Tops.
Tops.
um, but yeah, I honestly love Star Wars, and I love Star Wars Rebels. You guys know how important that show is to me and to Jamie, and I couldn't be happier that we get to take the love that we had, like one show of us, getting really nerdy about the women of Rebels turns into this. So if you guys have any show ideas, please reach out to the Virtual Cantina Network and offer them up, because you never know what can happen. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to think about because I just remember getting the text message from you being like, hey, can you cover one show on Rebels Revisited? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, wait, what am I talking about? And when you mentioned that we were going to talk about the women of Star Wars, or specifically the women of Star Wars Rebels, I was like, hang on, how much time do I have? Like, how long is this show?
That was
And I remember,
literally an almost 2 hour show.
no, we talked for 2 hours about women of Star Wars, specifically Rebels. I keep saying Star Wars. But it just, I think the best part about it is that by the end of it, we were looking at each other, we're like, wow, that didn't feel like 2 hours at all. And I don't know, maybe the audience felt all 2 hours. I don't know. But I think I think there's so many incredible characters that are coming to light right now, and in the very recent past. So this show I think is really well timed. Before we dive into that, oh my gosh, I didn't even introduce myself.
Yes,
See, I'm like ready to
all about
talk,
you.
Ashley. I'm
She's
ready to
ready.
talk.
Go.
So hi everyone. My name is Jamie Graham. I lovingly joke that the Virtual Cantina Network fed me one time, and like a stray cat, I just kept showing up. I've helped cover
your porch.
right? That's why you never feed stray animals. No, but it was really an honor and a joy to jump into a couple of episodes of Rebels Revisited with Ashley and with Mark, because I think when you really love something, talking about it is never a chore, and there's so much joy that comes with that, right? Like we wouldn't have a network if we didn't have people that were that passionate about Star Wars in all of its many forms. So I think the beauty of Star Wars and the beauty of these types of opportunities is that there are so many different through lines on Star Wars. I know we have a show for the High Republic, and we have watch alongs for the original trilogy, and watch alongs for the Clone Wars, and Rebels Revisited, of course. So no matter what your hook is in with Star Wars, I mean, there's a little bit of everything, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so I don't have the don't tell Spencer. Listen, that's what got us in trouble in the first place. I don't have the crazy artistic talent that Ashley does, but I am a former Walt Disney Company cast member, and I worked at Hollywood Studios actually at the height of Rebels, right when Rebels was at its peak. So getting to experience and share those stories in the theme parks was something that was just unbelievable and so special. And now getting to share that with my daughter, who, for those of you who don't know, is named Sabine because of Star Wars Rebels. It's just such a wonderful time to have a daughter and to have these incredible female Star Wars characters. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. She will never know a time when Star Wars isn't for girls and isn't for women. So that's sort of what brings
Yes.
us to this show, right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Scooby. We love you guys, and we're so glad that you're joining us here.
Thank
So cool.
you.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, like thinking about it in those terms, like we always had Leia. We had Leia up
Hmm.
until the prequels, and we had Padme, and then
Hmm.
Ahsoka and Padme and Paris Offee, and like the whole list of characters like expanded slowly. And
Hmm.
honestly, we're in a damn good time, girl.
We really are. We're so spoiled. But like, do
Yeah.
you remember? Because Ashley and I are about the same age. We don't need to get into that number here, but we're close on the same age. Do you remember a time like growing up when like if you wanted a Star Wars T-shirt, you had to go to the boys section, or like you could only wear like the men's T-shirt because there was nothing,
I
no
still
toys, no
do that.
merchandise.
Like,
I know, but listen, Ashley Eckstein was working on that for us the whole time.
yes.
But there was no in our childhood. There was no real celebration or offerings for girls or for women because Star Wars was, really seen as something that was for boys.
Yeah.
Star Wars is for boys, and man, it's so great to see that that's no longer the case. So
Right?
I think you're
Star
right,
Wars
though.
is
It
for
starts.
everyone.
It is. It's for everyone. But I think you're absolutely right in that so much of this starts with Leia, which is why we're here to talk about Leia.
Absolutely. So we are kicking off our very first show this week with Leia, with where it all began. Like
Mhm.
the first woman in space for a lot of us. And, regardless of where it's gone from here, like she set the blueprint for the heroines in Star Wars.
Mhm.
Like, and she was so proud of it. Carrie Fisher was so proud of that ideal, and she talked about it wherever she went. I got to talk with her a little bit. All hail Princess Leia! Yes. I got to talk with her a little bit at New York Comic Con about it before she passed, and that was, something I will never forget. So very cool.
I think that legacy too on people like us, right? Like it makes us want to see more, and it almost makes us greedy, right? Because we were so spoiled by
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher as Leia. And I mean, I remember when I worked in the park, the day that Carrie passed, it was the strangest thing because like none of us knew her, right? Like none of us knew her personally, but all of us kind of felt those shockwaves. And then the next day, having guests come up to us to like lay flowers at a theme park in front of an attraction or in front of Star Tours because
Wow.
she was our princess. Like it was just such an incredible thing to see. Like I don't think a lot of celebrities um, really have that gift to connect with their fans the way that Carrie Fisher had that gift.
Oh yeah, it was her blunt honesty, both on screen and off,
Hmm.
that endeared her to so many. And for once, it wasn't about like little boys falling in love with this character and, those stories that men tell at conventions. It was those stories that matter as much to us as women. It was like I was watching Star Wars because my brothers made me, and then I saw you, and it completely changed my life. It was things
Yeah.
like that, and that's what I love about her. And Carrie wore that on her sleeve. Her daughter Billy continues that legacy now, and she
Hmm.
knows how much it means to her fans, and it's an honor. She gave voice to a whole generation a female sci-fi fan starting in 1977, and the light has not gone out.
Right. And I think what you said about even passing the torch to her daughter, to Billie Lourd, is so interesting because that passing of the torch happened. It's like art imitates life, life imitates art, right? Because since that original trilogy, not only have we gotten this incredible backstory with the prequels, with learning about Padme and her lineage, right? And seeing Leia and all of these iterations of her life, but I mean, even up until recently, like gosh, what this year, late last year, we saw a whole new side of Leia with Obi-Wan Kenobi. We saw little
Absolutely.
Leia. Was that the cameo you were expecting? Did you expect to see little Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Honestly, no, but it's
Yeah,
probably one of the things that I am the most grateful for that has happened from that show. Like,
totally agree.
the relationship between Leia and Obi-Wan, or Ben as she knows him, but
Mm,
smart little girl, she knows better.
hmm.
And that's probably one of the most, endearing and, um, grounding pieces of Star Wars that I know of, and, Ewan and Vivian are just amazing actors, and for someone who's so young, when when she's dishing the snark out to her cousin about, like, the lower life forms and
Yeah,
yeah, the self-rescuing princess, absolutely, that's where it all began, and, like, oh, well, yes.
yeah.
Absolutely, me too. It
I
really
remember thinking like they're gonna throw a curveball. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi, so obviously there's gonna be like a cameo. We've seen so many of those types of cameos in all of this recent Star Wars, but I was thinking, especially because there was so much early focus on Tatooine, I'm like, all right, it's gonna be Luke. It's gonna be, oh my god, it's Leia.
absolutely, yeah, that's what I totally thought. Like,
And and I think so often some of the most unsung heroes in any type of production, whether it's film or television or, stage or whatever it is, are casting directors. And I got to tell you, whoever the casting director was, and I can look it up in a second, but whoever the casting director was for Obi-Wan Kenobi, who probably auditioned all sorts of young, talented actors, whoever found Vivian, like, they deserve a prize because she was so sharp and she was so I think her birthday just passed. I think she's only like 11 or 12 years old, so
yeah,
she's
she's
very young.
11, she's very young.
And, figure how long it took to film that, but for her to have the maturity and the skill and the talent to nail some of Carrie Fisher's mannerisms and faces and behaviors that we kind of saw in the original trilogy, I just like, wow, what a girl. What a talented
Absolutely.
actor.
Carmen Cuba, or Cuba, is the casting director, and,
Listen, listen, Carmen.
honestly, you nailed it, girl. Like, honestly, like, I don't think there is a bad actor in the bunch. I don't believe that at all. I honestly, from Ewan to, Rupert, the rest of the crew, Moses, Vivian, um, Jimmy Smith's coming back. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just things that you, again, like, you expect it to be Luke, and you're like, okay, it's more of Tatooine Luke, and as you said, that curveball, like, okay, wow, this is, you get the whole rest of Star Wars to see
Mhm,
the relationship between Luke and Obi-Wan, which is fine. But
mhm,
to show why Leia reached out to him, "Help me,
mhm.
Obi-Wan, you're my only hope." Like, it just gets you right in the feels, like, honestly.
Isn't it isn't it interesting though? So Leia's story is one that starts right at the very beginning of that opening of the opening of the original trilogy, right? With
Yeah,
the destruction of her homeworld, and so many things that we thought in 1977 or whenever your first interaction was with Star Wars, we thought that we might never see or touch on or hear from ever again. But, like, to know that we went as far back as Leia's childhood to learn about her relationship with her adoptive parents, Bail and Brea, to see her early interactions with, you know, help me Obi-Wan Kenobi, but to actually see her with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
yeah.
I just my greatest regret in all of this is, my god, could you imagine how much Carrie would have absolutely idolized this little
Oh
girl
my
and just
god, I would have loved that photo op, like,
yeah.
it would
Yeah,
have
but
been
it's just
amazing.
you see her come all the way full circle, and deliver just some incredible, iconic moments, not just in Star Wars, but like in all of sci-fi.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. And to just I think showing Alderaan and Brea and Bale and her home life and how much they loved her, but they let her know exactly where she came from.
mm,
And, you know, it kind of made what happened to Alderaan at the hands of Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin just a lot more bittersweet. It's like filling in the holes and
yes,
adding emotional depth, like surprising emotional depth where needed. And yeah, David said the same thing. To see Alderaan in all its glory was amazing. Um,
yeah,
absolutely. And I just I didn't know I wanted to see that, and it it was what we didn't know we needed, but what we always wanted.
right. No, I agree. And Ashley, you know, I'm a big fan of the books. So
Yeah,
there are so many Star Wars books out there. So
yeah.
one of the things that's been most intimidating for me as I started my love affair with the books all these years ago was trying to pick a story to start with and trying to find a character that was maybe really familiar and then jumping into the books that way. And while this isn't an older book, there are a couple of really great books that have been written recently about Leia specifically. So the first one is, of course, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, that was written by Claudia Gray, who's a pretty prolific Star Wars writer. But if you loved that emotional journey of getting more of Alderaan and getting more of Bale and Brea and getting more of sort of that young Leia and really seeing where her story starts, that one kind of knocked me on my back a little bit because there was
Oh, wow.
so much about seeing Leia almost like just as a teenager, like as a normal teenager with all of these sort of added responsibilities. So wanting to do right by her parents and wanting to sort of honor these traditions on Alderaan, but also being like, but is this really my world? Like, do I really fit in here? It's a really great book. Definitely recommend picking it up. It's out on
Yeah,
paperback
we
now
have
too.
to.
So if that's something that's if you're not
I'm
you don't want to spend a ton of money,
I'm
it's
agreeing
a good
with
one.
you, like, with the literature, it is kind of overwhelming because it's like there's
Hmm.
so much, like, where do I
Yeah.
start? Both, like, the EU and nowadays, and I just picked one. I like, A New Dawn is the one I've picked
Yeah.
and High Republic, but honestly, like, wherever, like, Leia came into it, like, I've been just kind of, like, a little bit like, "Okay, what are the best stories for us to go through with Leia?" So, if you wanna name off some more, like, I will
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
be taking notes.
yeah, I have had like one of my lockdown projects was to kind of go through my pile of Star Wars books and just start putting them together in like a spreadsheet of like the order in which you read them and who they're written by. And like I'm that
Damn,
level
girl.
of focused that
Oh, there you go.
like like to have everything. Yeah, okay. So Sarah's mentioning Bloodline. So hold that thought, Sarah, because I have like notes on Bloodlines. Because there's some really, really great stuff happening there.
Cool.
But if you're more of a visual person, if you're not, if books aren't your thing, and listen, I respect that, I get that. They actually turned Leia, Princess of Alderaan, into a manga. I don't usually read manga; it's not really my preferred format. But I haven't personally read it, but I've heard it's a really good adaptation of the book. So if you're more of a visual person, it's another
Go
option
for
for you.
it. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's another option for you. Um, so yeah, so I wrote again. This is my level of like crazy. I wrote everything down literally in timeline order.
I mean,
The
I'm
Princess and
not
the
gonna
Scoundrel.
complain because
See?
I need to know this, so
Yeah. So it's like Sarah and Sherry are reading my notes right here because the next book that I actually had on my list with regards to Leia is indeed The Princess and the Scoundrel.
ooh, I've heard
Um,
buzzy things about that one, so
mhm. Hi, Hunter. Um, so yeah, so Sarah, to your point, the manga is the same title. It's called Leia, Princess of Alderaan. I think don't quote me on this, I think it's 3 volumes. It's only three. It's not a long series, so it shouldn't be a huge financial investment if your library doesn't have it, but that's another option for you. But you should support your library because libraries are great. Um, so Princess and the Scoundrel is another fairly new book by Beth Revis, another very popular name in the Star Wars book universe. And the premise of that one, and let's see, Sherry, you may be a little bit more on the ball than me because I'm not going to lie, I'm always going to be honest. It's still sitting in my to read pile. It's like near the top, but I'm really focused on the High Republic. Um, So the Princess and the Scoundrel, the sort of high level notes on the Princess and the Scoundrel, of course, what it's known for is that it's the wedding of Han and Leia. There was a really beautiful illustration on the cover of Leia's wedding dress on Endor, and it's like
The most
it's
cosplayed wedding dress
yeah.
of the century. Yes.
Every cosplayer just like as soon as that image dropped, everyone's like, "There's a new Leia costume. There's a new Leia costume, and it's a dress." It's really really cool.
Oh, and it's so
Um,
stunning. Yeah.
it's beautiful. Yeah, it's very peak like Endor Leia. It's really beautiful. But my other little fun fact about this book is that as part of their honeymoon, they actually travel on this luxury starliner called the Halcyon,
No
which,
way.
may it rest in peace, is the Galactic Star Cruiser here in Orlando. So yeah, so if you're looking for like a fun little snippet, a fun little I mean, listen, we have cameos for everything else, right? So why wouldn't we have a cameo for Galactic Star Cruiser? But you
Right.
can, if you stay at the Star Cruiser before it closes, you can say that you stayed on the ship that Han and Leia honeymooned.
Yeah. Oh my God.
um,
Goals. Core little goals right
listen,
here.
I tried for 4 hours and I still didn't get through.
No way. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Mm. So I'm still trying. I'm still working on it. Um, but one of the things that's really piqued my interest with The Princess and the Scoundrel and kind of tying it to Bloodline, whoever mentioned Bloodline, um, is that both books deal with something that I think we saw in the original trilogy through Luke's eyes, but we didn't get to see it through Leia's eyes. And that's the fallout when the rest of the world kind of realizes that she's Darth Vader's daughter.
Ooh.
So in Bloodline specifically, um, Leia is serving the Senate and she's this representative and she's serving as a respected representative until it kind of comes to light that she can't necessarily be trusted because she's Darth Vader's daughter. And all of the sort of dominoes that fall as a result of that bomb being dropped.
Oh boy. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
gonna be hard. That's like, can you imagine? Like the way this world works already with like politicians digging up dirt on each other. Like, can you imagine? Like, just, oh,
Hmm.
crazy. Oh, and she's
Yeah.
out.
So, and to Sarah's
Wow.
point, yeah, she's outed in a bad way. I don't want to spoil it too much because I want you all to go out and read these books, but that's kind
Cool.
of like a high level sort of thing to think about, right? Because we have this
Yeah.
iconic moment with Luke, I am your father, but guess what? Leia, I'm also your father. It's you don't necessarily see it from Leia's point of view, and um, part of what's so great about living in this timeline that we're in right now is that we are seeing more come out from Leia's point of view. So
Absolutely. And I have gotten into oh, it's entirely possible with Palpatine's granddaughter. Yeah, that's possible. Um, but we'll get into that with the Ray stuff. So
yeah, hold off on Ray. Well, yeah, let's talk about with Ray.
push Ray off
Well,
aside for now.
I mean,
No love
we
to
can
like much love to Ray, but well, yeah,
we
I
can
think it's
segue
time.
that right into the sequel trilogy, I suppose, because
Yeah.
guess what? Leia shows up there too.
Yeah. So, in comic book form, Leia had a little series, like a 5-issue series, put out by Marvel Comics in 2015, and I was a huge fan of this series. And it was how Leia dealt with the destruction of Alderaan,
Mm.
like really dealt with it, not just like what you see on the screen where it's like, oh, my planet, and just move on. Yeah, it was her actually looking for survivors, like other Alderaanians throughout the galaxy, and just trying to like connect with them. And yeah, it was a really well done miniseries. The art by the Dodsons was just phenomenal. Um, yeah, if you can find that graphic novel, it's on Amazon. It's like a 5-issue series. Definitely check that out.
Whew, I'm so far behind on comics, and like I gotta get up there. Yeah. So for those of you who are just joining, who are trying to contribute in the chat, just so you know, if you have not taken the step to connect your Facebook to StreamYard, we just see you as a Facebook user. So it makes it kind of hard for us to engage with you the way that we want to engage with you. So take an extra second if you can. Go to streamyard.com/Facebook, connect your account, and that way we can see all of your wonderful comments and
Yeah,
engage with you.
absolutely. Um, that's so we're gonna go stream as Jamie said. We're gonna segue that into the sequel trilogy and
Mm.
how Leia was represented there. And I really thought it was so cool when you had Carrie coming back in the role as Leia and just bring in that worldliness and that badassness to General Leia. Like, yes, ma'am. Like, it was so cool to
Mhm.
see her not just as a princess, but like she had worked her way up throughout and was doing the best she could with the rebellion. And she had some personal loss in there as well.
Yeah, the sequel trilogy. Um, oh, so my first interaction with the sequel trilogy was not necessarily positive. I just found it a little bit too clunky until I started really going through and watching the movies and watching or consuming that content one character at a time. So taking a character like Leia and following Leia's story almost like a through line from episode 7 to 8 to 9 and seeing her story kind of unfold.
Yeah.
Um, ultimately, I think the thing that really resonated with me and that I think is really such an important message, especially for our show, for this Daughters of the Galaxy show. Um, part of why we chose this name for our show and settled on this name for this show is because there are so many female characters in Star Wars that are not force sensitive. So, we kind of kicked around like ladies of the force, but then we're like, a lot of characters aren't force sensitive, but
Yeah.
there's so much focus, I think. And I mean, I want you to tell your side of the this conversation we had as well, but there's so much focus on the mother-daughter related relationship
Yeah.
or this daughter moniker that we kind of see like Ahsoka Tano takes from the daughter from Mortis, and we see a character like Hera's relationship as a daughter to a revolutionary like Cham Syndulla. Um, but going back to the sequel trilogy, we see Leia kind of take a character like Rey on almost as like in like a maternal and a mother daughter type of way.
Yeah, and
I don't know. I kind of read that.
it ran parallel to how she saw Han, like
Mm.
how Rey saw Han. She saw Han as like a father figure, and even like Kylo Ren was like, "Don't, he'll only disappoint you." Like just kind of like he totally capitalizes on using that to hurt her. Um, but I think it's her and Rey have a very maternal daughterly bond, and it just seemed only natural. Like they're all these women throughout this galaxy far, far away are united under this banner. They all are either mentors or children or mothers to other revolutionaries, and um, it only made sense to call this show "The Daughters of the Galaxy" because, yeah,
Listen, we threw around a lot of names before we landed on this one, y'all.
we
So
did. But you know what? I
I think
am
we nailed
proud of
it.
it. I am very proud of it.
Yeah, I think we
It's
nailed it.
amazing. I love it. Yeah, and
um,
David says in the chat, I think we would have seen more Ray and Leia mother-daughter mentor bond had Carrie lived.
I
And
agree.
yeah, I definitely agree. Like seeing where it went,
Mhm.
it was starting to go with like that used footage in yeah, episode 9, which is my least favorite of
I
all
would
the
agree with
movies.
that.
I'm sorry, but yeah. um it was
It's
it could have been better. And I get why, but
I think it was also interesting to visit the idea of, and I don't know that the movie would have been the area that I would have wanted to explore this. I feel like I would have wanted to explore this perhaps more in a book or in a graphic novel. But seeing Leia's potential force sensitivities,
yeah,
we see her training with a lightsaber, right? And then we see her whole move out in space.
that brings us to Brie Convery's point, and she says, "I always felt like Leia saw herself in Rey if she continued training to be a Jedi." So it was
Oh,
just that
Brie.
that inspiration. Um,
Poetry.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, bravo. And I really think that's probably where it would have gone had Carrie lived.
Yeah. And I think it was sort of well, I don't want to say it felt almost inevitable that we were going to see Leia rejoin the Force, as it were, because we had seen Han go and Luke do his Luke thing. So I feel, for lack of a better,
The
Luke was just
the
doing
Luke
Luke,
thing.
his whole Luke thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely, I definitely would have been curious to see where that would have ended up with, yeah, like Jedi training Leia as we start to see her in Heir to the Empire. Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a pin in that. But no, I agree. I I want more story there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody make that comic. Somebody. Hey Marvel,
Hey,
what you up
you
to?
never know. They seem to be listening to us with a lot of things lately
I
on the
know.
on the VCN. So just saying. um, so how do you feel? And this is something that I feel like a lot of the fanboys kind of take this as like, oh, the Disney-fying of Star Wars with this, but um, yeah, just kind of taking the Hut Slayer Leia and the slave Leia, as it's been known for many, many, many years, um, and just doing away with it in merchandising and um, as a whole, and then Carrie taking that spin and just being like, well, yeah, she wore that costume because she was made to wear that costume, but she killed the guy who put her in the costume, so she wasn't putting
So
up with it.
between Sarah's comment and Spencer's comment and the rant I'm about to go on here,
Oh
that
boy.
Kermit the Frog meme with the T?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whale.
Well,
Whale. Um, so I was actually reading an article about exactly this, which is part of why I really wanted to talk about it tonight, and about how I think what we kind of forget oftentimes is that Jabba the Hutt as um, as a villain, if you look at all of the other women specifically, like under Jabba's control,
especially
they
Ula,
were,
yeah.
yeah, right. This is what I'm getting at, right? So, like, if you look at all of them, they were all dressed very scantily. They were all meant to sort of, imply one thing and one thing only, right? So, do I think that the costume was inappropriate, or the costume, the slave Leia moniker was not appropriate under the circumstances? I mean, that's exactly what they were getting at, right? It was exactly what they were
Yeah,
getting at. However, I think, again, like in so many things we've talked about with Leia so far tonight, there's so many ways to tell a story and from so many different perspectives. So I think to
from a
keep
certain point of
Leia
view.
in from a certain point of view, listen,
Yes.
that next one's coming up before the end of the year. But from a certain point of view, you could argue that that Hutt Slayer moniker, that Hutt Slayer name, is exactly what Leia was. She took something that she didn't want, that was forced upon her, she reclaimed it, and then she ended up killing her captor in that costume. I have no problems whatsoever with the Hutt Slayer moniker. I think it is poetry. I love it. I will
Yes.
never refer to her as Slave Leia ever again. She is Hutt Slayer
Absolutely.
Leia.
I
I need more
think
tea.
Carrie helped take that back when she mentioned the fact that she was the Hut Slayer. Um,
Hmm.
honestly, it did a complete 180 to the whole thing. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it was reclaiming it. It was taking back
Hmm.
something that was like sexualized and thrown at upon her against her will, and just being like, no, this woman is going to fight for her life. She's going to help her friends break free, and she's going to do it in the most badass way possible.
She sure is. That's also another, again, without getting too much into a lot of the spoilers of the books, because you should all read the books. The books are lovely.
I know.
And we will, even if I have to put together, I will put together a reading list for the VCN if I have to,
That'd
because
be
I'm really passionate
amazing.
about it.
Yeah,
Let me get
I
on it.
will gladly take
Um,
that list. Yeah.
uh, but in Bloodline specifically, there's a moment where Leia is sort of like she's sort of faced with that memory. She's sort of forced to relive that moment where she kills Jabba the Hutt. And I think the surprise that she has when she finds out that other people were referring to her as the Hutt Slayer. She was the Hutt
Wow.
Slayer. She killed Jabba the Hutt. And I think it was really nice to see it in writing, to see it in text, that this is a character who I don't know, maybe up until that moment, Leia really did think that she was, a slave for lack of we're
Yeah,
keeping it a family friendly show, right? I can't say anything inappropriate. Family friendly show. Uh, so seeing her reclaim that through somebody else's eyes, I think only really, listen, if we're making new VCN t-shirts, I have like a whole list. But seeing her reclaim that title through somebody else's eyes, I think is only reinforces what a badass she really is. So.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's again, it shows that Han and Luke needed her. Like she was essential. She got them into it, really. Like she
Hmm.
got Chewie in there, she got Lando in there, and ultimately got captured, but she rescued herself. She killed
Hmm.
her captor, and just it gives you the warm fuzzies because you know that like George Lucas at that point, he's like, "Oh, I'm putting you in this bikini, but you're gonna kill the guy that put you in that bikini," and she's like, "All right, as long as I get to do that, whatever."
Yeah, that's
So
probably that's probably peak like Carrie Fisher right
yeah,
there. Truly,
tremendous
nothing warms
respect for
my
that
heart.
woman. Yeah, and to the point where, like, when Carrie shows up in Hook, it's my favorite little cameo, and it's a blink if you miss it, and you can't really tell if it's her, but it is her. And if you've ever watched Hook and you see Tinkerbell carrying Peter off to Neverland when she first meets him, and he's wrapped up in the bed sheet, and the pixie dust sprinkles on this couple making out on the bridge, on London Bridge, and they start floating up into the air. That's Carrie and George Lucas.
What?
Yeah. So
Oh
it's
my
it's
god.
it's a well-known little factoid, but yeah, and Carrie helped
Listen,
helped ghostwrite a lot for Steven Spielberg and George in this, so it was their little way of cameoing her in. So that was one of my favorite little things.
I I am shook to my core. I think I know what I'm
Uh,
watching after the show tonight.
yeah. Oh my god, it's one of my favorites. I've loved that movie
it's
forever.
it's a solid one. Um the okay, so somebody actually hang on. I got so distracted thinking about Hook. I had like a great so yeah, see Sherry gets it. She's like, now I have to go watch Hook. And I'm like, listen, you
Yeah,
and me, girl,
girl.
let's party. Let's do it. Um somebody said something up here. Oh, yeah, like some of the glimpses we got of Leia in the animated series. So yeah, so let's talk about Leia in the animated series, right?
Yeah. We haven't gotten there yet.
Because we haven't gotten there yet. I know. I said I was going to go in order like chronologically, and then I started talking about books, and here we are.
Yeah, once we get to the books, we never go back. But having Leia show up first in episode of Rebels
Hmm.
and shocking as a teenager, and she's on a diplomatic mission for her planet of Alderaan, and she's kind of like sticking it in the face of the Empire, like my father is going to be so mad when you guys when he hears how inept you guys are, and it just I love that little side, but and on the down low, she's got her plans to get supplies to the rebellion. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so it's
And those diplomatic missions that you see her on too, again, kind of go hand in hand with that Leia Princess of Alderaan book because so
yeah,
many of the things that she was doing in that book were these diplomatic missions that she was kind of like ho hum about because she really wanted to do them her way and she really wanted to do them in a way that she thought where she could make the greatest difference. So I did really love that episode of Rebels because you kind of did see Leia saying, "I'm gonna Leia my way through this.
oh yeah,
gonna
and she
gonna
kind
do
of
what I
gives a
gotta
little
do."
bit of inspiration to our ghost crew and just
Mm,
teaches them like, okay, it's you can still be a kid. Like Leia is 15 at this point, and she's
mhm,
teaching Ezra and Sabine how to get these supplies to the rebellion, and it's bigger than they know.
mhm,
It's just it kind of kicks the door open on their whole world, and they realize that it's more than just Lothal. It's other like planets as well. So and Julie Dolan, spectacular Leia. Like
mhm.
you, if we couldn't get Leia as Carrie Fisher, obviously because she was older at this point, Julie Dolan was perfect. Absolutely sounds like in Leia. Yes,
We're just
yes.
gonna.
We're just gonna flash it. Love it.
It's like a club, like a club down
Yeah,
there.
and it is one of my favorite. They came out with the 3 3/4 figure of her, and this is why you're very careful and do your homework when you buy action figures at conventions. Um, somebody had that Leia figure on card for $50 at I believe it was Rhode Island Comic Con, and I was like, "Oh, it's a Leia figure from Rebels," and I'm like, "Oh, but it's $50, and I'm gonna kind of wait." And then a month and a half later, I saw them in Target for like $8. So I bought one, and I was like, "Okay, this is much better." But it's just the small little things of merchandising that they use for Leia, and she's wearing her, she's a typical teenager. She's got the braids, so it's Leia, and she it's probably one of my favorite Leia appearances that isn't OT or
Mm,
sequel trilogy. It's her being a badass, but also being a kid.
yeah. Well, and I think when a lot of because Star Wars time is so weird. Like I still, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, I still struggle with like, oh God, what year are we in? How many years has it been? How old are all these people? It's so stressful for me. But like I think sort of to your point, right, is Luke and Leia are the same age as Ezra.
Hmm.
So knowing that like we talked a little bit you guys did the watch of the Iron Squadron where you kind of talked about how Mart was sort of bratty, right? And I think it's
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that all of these kids fighting these wars, right, are roughly the same ages and how they deal with it, right? Luke and
Yeah.
Leia each have their own thing kind of going on. Ezra has his own thing going on, but they're all the same age. And seeing a literal child, a 15-year-old child, be able to be that sharp and that diplomatic. Somebody in the chat, Lila says diplomatic like her mama.
Yeah.
That she absolutely inherited like the very best of both of her parents. She absolutely inherited the incredible diplomacy from Padme and the wit and, dare I say, recklessness, but in the best way possible, from Anakin,
And that's
to
what
kind of get
Obi-Wan
the
tells
job
her at
done.
the end of
Mhm.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
Oh,
that's one of my favorite
he gets
parts.
me
Oh my god.
crying absolutely when he's going through all of those adjectives. I was just like, okay, this is
Oh,
like
and another scene is like where
so beautiful.
where he tells her like, I wish I could say I was your father, and I was like, see, you even recognize that she's a little badass. Adopt her
Yeah,
then.
it's but also I think in that moment, right, you want to be like, yes, just adopt her. Like, oh my God, I would do anything to see like old man Ben just putzing around the desert with little Leia, right? But I think there's
Or going on
also
these intergalactic adventures because he's like,
listen,
"Hey, Lars, Owen, can and Baru, can you guys just be badasses and keep an eye on Luke for a bit? Yeah, I took care of those Inquisitors for you. Just keep an eye on it. Me and Leia are gonna go do this, okay? Yeah."
I wouldn't want to fight Beirut. I'm just saying, I wouldn't want to fight her.
I wouldn't want to fight Brea and Bale either. Like, she's got badass parents everywhere. Like, honest
But
to
let's
God,
talk about that, right? I
yeah.
think of all of the people in the galaxy for Leia to land with.
Baru crew, yes,
Yes. From a certain, yeah, listen, I will write that from a certain point of view. I will do it. Let's go. Let's party. Come on,
yeah.
Del Rey Books. Hit me up on Instagram. I got this. Um, but I think to know that Leia landed with Bale and Brea, especially with Bale's ongoing, hand in the rebellion, which I'm sure we're gonna see more of soon. I'm sure we're gonna see that start to fold into like some upcoming projects. Um, I think that's a pretty amazing thing because she definitely inherited all of these skills and traits from her birth parents, but I think she also inherited so much from her adoptive parents too. So it was absolutely the Organas were absolutely the
It's
right
the
people
whole
to have
nature
her.
versus nurture portion of her life. Like, she's got the inherent stubbornness and diplomacy, but she's also got this kind and gentleness and this absolute badass espionage.
Yeah.
um Part of it, and it's a double-sided coin, and I love it. um Spencer asked an
Do
interesting
you,
question. Do you think that Leia looked at Tala as a role model? I think it's entirely possible, because this is a woman that was sacrificing her status as an imperial officer to help the rebellion and to help people and to help other Jedi get out of there. Um,
mm,
it was something that her kindness was still there despite it, and it just showed her that you could be on the other side. You could be part of the Empire, one of the bad guys, but you can take it back and you can do good with it. And I think that was a huge, huge, example for her. Because it's
I
like,
think it
okay,
also
good and evil is also in that gray area here, and just imagine, it all depends on what you do with it.
I think it's also really important to remember that up until this age, and I mean, probably for years after, right? She's pretty, I don't want to say sheltered, but she's pretty well protected. Like she lives in, thank you. So Sarah actually put it much more succinctly than I think I could have put it. That broadening of Leia's horizons. So I think it's exactly that, right? You hear these stories of the Empire, you hear what the Empire is doing, but for all intents and purposes, Leia is living in this pretty opulent, palace on, on Alderaan, and she doesn't necessarily have the real life experience to be
But
able
she's
to
not a spoiled child, that's what I love about it, like,
no.
she's talking to her droid, she's being respectful and kind to her
Mm,
servants, and they love her too, like, that's why they went along with her little scheme to trick her mother so she could go in the woods, um,
for
so
sure.
she's got that level of kindness and generosity with people who are supposed to be lower than her.
So I think, to Spencer's point, do we think that Tala was a role model? I don't know that I would say a role model. I think it's more of a reality check. It's okay. So these people, this is what's actually happening off of Alderaan right now. This is how people are actually responding to these very grim and very, real situations that are happening on places that aren't Alderaan.
Yeah,
And, I think it was just a reality check for her that maybe awakened more of like a spark of rebellion in her and a desire to want to do more and be more.
yeah,
Because it would have been just as easy for her to get returned to her opulent abode in Alderaan and to not turn into who we know who she's going to be. But she didn't.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, and I also think, like, and as Sarah said, Tala and being on that ship with the rest of the rebels and getting out of there before the Empire basically destroyed everybody, like that love that made everything very real to her. And I think she took her father's sacrifice and Obi-Wan Kenobi's sacrifices, and especially ultimately Tala's,
mm.
so seriously, and it did broaden her horizons. Absolutely.
It's also something that I think she carries with her, because we see Leia through not just you know, the Empire, but then we see her in a time of peace, and
Hmm.
then we see her with the falling of, the First Order or the falling of the New Republic and the rise of the First Order. So I mean, she's just got she really has all of these experiences that just kind of keep building and building and building. And to your earlier, way earlier point, Ashley, when you see her become a general, she she's lived through so many of these scenarios
Yeah,
that she kind of knows what's got to be done to get the job done. Um, yeah, it's sad when you kind of think about it because she's never really known like a stretch of peace. She just really
absolutely.
gets the crap end of the stick every time. Poor Leia.
Yeah, but honestly, it kind of gives her. It's what she was born to do, like to kind of right the wrongs from her father
Yeah.
and um make way for the future, like so she could have a future, her and other kids.
Mhm.
Like she just tends to latch on to Bale's work um and be inspired. Like, well, my mother was a senator. Like I could do this,
Mhm.
and yeah, just so
It's
intelligent,
been
so smart.
it's been I mean such a wonderful journey to have sat on my dad's lap when I was a really small child and watched that original trilogy
Yeah,
to now being an adult with a kid of my own and knowing that this character that I fell in love with all these years ago has just such a tremendous backstory. We talked about it in the very beginning, but filling in those gaps, I think, is just such a great thing. Um, and I know the prequels. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the prequels," but I think
Clone Wars helped
seeing
with that.
Clone Wars did help, but I think we had to see where Anakin came from. We had to see where Padme came from in order to give us a character like Luke, but specifically like Leia.
Right.
I personally, of the two, I think that Leia is by far the better blend of her parents than perhaps Luke is. And I love Luke Skywalker. We're not here to talk about that. But I think that Leia is such a beautiful blend of both of these incredible characters. And Spencer says Bale said it best. I'd trust her with my life, and
Yeah.
you ain't wrong.
So there has been many actresses who have played Leia over the
Mhm.
course of Star Wars. Obviously, we have first and foremost our space mom, Carrie Fisher. Um, she originated the character. She gave her best parts, the heart, the soul, the badassness. Um, take no crap from any point of view. Yeah. Save the boys and yeah, the blueprint for Leia. Absolutely.
Mhm.
She fought George Lucas tooth and nail for everything and to get her character out there and um, it's been awesome. And we've also had obviously we talked about Julie Dolan and Freemaker's Adventures and Rebels. A phenomenal voice actress, definitely captures the younger Leia. Shelby Young was the voice of Leia in the Forces of Destiny in various Lego series and video games.
Mhm.
Um, Ingrid Delia played her mocap in Rogue One. That was incredible. Like that was probably one of the most shocking things I'd seen. I just remember going, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, how did they do that?" But it was
The
yeah.
last several minutes of Rogue One were just a
Thank
trip.
you, Dave Filoni.
A trip. There's a lot
Yeah,
going on.
absolutely. Misty Lee played her in Battlefront 2, which is a phenomenal video game. Definitely check out the cutscenes. Countless hours have I witnessed of my friends and everybody playing Battlefront 2. I can tell you everything. I know the sequel trilogy score so much better now listening watching that game. And Misty brought so much badassness to Leia. Like you see her running around the battlefield and firing at these uh, clone troopers and sorry stormtroopers and whoever they're fighting against. It's really cool. Um, Anna Graves, who also voiced Satine, she voiced Leia in Disney Infinity 3.0.
Mhm.
Carolyn Hennessy was the voice of Leia in Star Wars Resistance, and she was in there sprinkled in a little bit, mostly to help Poe and to just kind of keep up with the resistance that way. Um, and obviously we have Vivian Lyra Blair, my second favorite to carry as
I would agree with that.
someone who played Leia and captured her with the same amount of heart, grace, wit, humor at such a young age. And I know she will be welcomed and respected by the Star Wars community, hopefully for the rest of her life, because the kid is phenomenal. And
Yeah.
we have Billy Lord, and this is poetic.
Mhm.
Um, Getting to mocap her mom during Leia's Jedi training in The Rise of Skywalker, like, it broke my heart.
There's some really powerful commentary. And Lila, I see your question. I'm going to come to that in just one second. I just didn't want you to think I was ignoring you. Um, there was a really beautiful interview with Billy Lord right around just a couple weeks ago when Carrie Fisher got her star on the Walk of Fame.
Mhm.
She wrote, I think it was an editorial for one of the magazines where she talked about how when she was a child she almost kind of resented Princess Leia. She was just like, oh yeah, Star Wars, like, oh yeah, it's just the thing my mom did. And she really didn't have much of like a love affair with Princess Leia. But then as she kind of grew up and she saw the hold that Princess Leia, had on the world by way of her mother, Carrie Fisher, as an adult, she started to really see Leia very differently. And now, I mean, the reverence that Carrie Ford, the reverence that Billy Lord, that was neither of those words were right. The reverence that Billy Lord has for Princess Leia,
Yeah.
um, not just because of her mother, but because of who the character is. It's just something that's really extraordinary. If I'm sure if you just Google search it, it's one of her more recent
Yeah, it was
interviews or
definitely during her
editorials.
speech. she spoke about how she didn't take it seriously, and it was just something that, like, "Oh, your mom was Princess Leia," and then she just sat down and finally watched that loud movie that bugged her when she was a child, and it changed her life. And not only that, I think Billy doing Celebration Anaheim 2022 changed her because she had never
Mhm.
really done a convention before, and it was her chance to interact with her fans, who people who loved her and loved her mother, and just had kind words to say to her about her mother, and it completely changed the aspect because it's more than just, oh, Leia's just, fanboy service. It's a real person to so many, and it was a gift that Carrie brought the entire fandom, and we all appreciate and honor that still.
Yeah,
And it
and
meant
and
so much
maybe
for her.
maybe the timing was better too, to walk into a universe where her mother really kickstarted a revolution, you know? She walked into a Star Wars that was not just that original trilogy anymore. She was
Yeah.
really seeing the profound impact that Leia had on the whole story, and knowing that her mother was the catalyst for all of that, I think is just an unbelievable thing. So, um, lot of love for Billy Lord. She's somebody that I
No
hold a lot of respect
relation
for.
no relation to Harrison.
No relation. It was just, listen, a lot of words came out and none of them were right. If anybody has ever had a long conversation with me, you know that this is the case.
It's okay. I'm seeing it typed out, and it just hit me like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Having read The Princess Diarist, yes.
Mhm.
Which, by
Yep.
the way, if any of you have the chance, please, Carrie Fisher is a phenomenal writer, so
Mhm.
witty, such a humorist. The Princess Diarist, Postcards from the Edge, um, Wishful Drinking, all fantastic books. Definitely check those out. Her library is amazing and fun.
And to just sort of come back to circle around, since we're talking about books, to Lila's point, she asks, is there any content about her being a mother to Ben, aka Kylo? Because having children will very much change you. Um, so the only book that comes to mind, and while we were going through some of the actors, I did just a quick Google search to see if any were kind of escaping me. And by no means am I the exhaustive resource on every Star Wars book out there, because if you've looked at the Star Wars section of like Del Rey, it's just pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of new titles. Like, it's bonkers. Bloodline does talk about it a little bit, because if I'm not mistaken, the most of the plot of Bloodline happens when Ben is young, and I believe at that point he's with Luke.
Yes.
So there is mention of it, but it's very peripheral. It's very like on the side. I can't think of
Oh,
a.
the Last Shot, the book with Han and Lando.
There was a mention of Last Shot here. I will tell you, yeah,
Yeah.
David mentions it. There are pieces of that in at least the Han and Lando novel Last Shot. I will tell you, I have not read Last Shot, so I am not the authority on that
So
one.
I skimmed through it real quick because I got a copy at a Del Rey party at San Diego Comic Con, and yeah, Mike is a
On the
resident
list.
bookworm. Yeah. So that book, it goes into, I guess this is a problem with Ben's nanny droid, and it like is corrupted somehow, and it tries to kill Ben, and
Oh,
Han and Lando have to solve the mystery about who did it.
I
And
kind of love this.
it's kind of crazy. So I skimmed through it really quick. Honestly, I haven't read anything else on it. I'm terrible. I have these
Listen,
amazing books in my collection, and I haven't read them, so that's why I need your list.
on principle alone, I think I want to read this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
on
fun. It's
principle
really
alone.
fun.
It's just it like it's giving me like after school special vibes, where like Han and Lando are just like just like the nanny's on the loose. The nanny droid is on the loose.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, that
Ugh,
Wishful Drinking was a one-woman show. I think HBO aired it after Carrie died, and it was beautiful. It was so good. And Bright Lights was
bright lights.
amazing. I think it is on, yeah, it's still on Max, right? Like, they haven't taken it down in the shuffle.
I
It's
think
still
it's still there. So
okay, I wanna
bright
rewatch that.
lights has some of the most iconic moments of Carrie Fisher walking through her house, just pointing things out.
Everything is
Um,
purple. This is, like, the
yeah.
perfect color for Carrie. Honestly, you guys, like, this woman loves purple. Purple and Coca-Cola were her best friends.
Yes. Yeah. I think, I'm gonna go ahead and blame my Diet Coke addiction perhaps on Carrie. It just seems right. It just feels right. So we're gonna go with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's walking around the house pointing things out. There are some really great memes about it. But like Carrie Fisher was just the unhinged chaos that we absolutely needed in this world. And man, to have lived on the same planet as her in a timeline like this is just
Oh, she was an
wonderful.
absolute gem. Absolute gem, and it's
Wonderful.
probably the most fun you'll ever see watching a documentary and just
Yeah.
seeing the love and the the heart this woman has. It's great. Yeah.
So Bree points out the Lego Star Wars Summer Special had her being a mom, and as we all know, the Lego the Lego content is absolutely canon. It should be canon. Gosh
Yeah.
darn it, it's so
Oh my
funny.
god, it's so funny. Honestly, I sit there watching it and my mom's like, "Why are you watching a cartoon?" and just laughing, and I'm like
You know
just to
what?
have, like, Darth Vader in his, like, Bermuda shorts, and he's just like, "I'm ready."
I'm at the point where there's so much going on this planet, and there's so much bad news every day that if altering canon to include Legos makes you happy, like I joke all the time that there are two droids that live in my head, and those two droids are Lego Chopper and Lego R2, and they're just constantly bum fighting like they do in yeah. That's when I dissociate. That's what's going on in my brain. Just two Lego droids fighting in my brain at all times. Just angry, furious beeping noises.
Absolutely.
Um, well,
Yes,
Lego is canon. Yep, absolutely.
we
That's
fight for that, and the Freemaker Adventures, if anybody hasn't watched that yet,
they're
honestly,
fun.
just have so much fun. So much
They're
fun.
fun. All
Yeah, so
right.
we're gonna, that we've talked for over an hour about, like, this amazing character and how much she's meant to all of us and to the Star Wars universe, and if you have ever had the absolute fortune of being baptized, like, Carrie Fisher baptism is just be glitter, glitter all over you for days.
Just
I got
so much
sprinkled
glitter.
all over the top of my head by Carrie, and I woke up the next morning. I honestly I still have glitter in the top loader of the print that she signed. So right from her table, it's stuck to the back of the print, and I will treasure that always because the glitter that was in my hair ended up in my eyes on my pillow in the hotel room, and I'm like, oh god, like I'm rinsing my eyes with like sippy cups in the restroom, and I'm like, but you know what? I wouldn't change a damn thing. Like it's, I have a picture of me with all the glitter on top of my head, and it's a moment I will treasure for the rest of my life. And
That's what I'm saying.
every single
The
person at that
unhinged
con you
chaos.
knew who met Carrie Fisher because they were just covered in glitter from chest up.
The unhinged chaos of Carrie Fisher. I
Beautiful
just
chaos.
yeah.
I love her.
But I think it's an important reminder, right? Because she, this is a woman who definitely was very open about a lot of her mental health struggles, and I think dealing with it the way that she did was so empowering to those of us who share similar struggles and who do have similar things going on. So again, I think the universe puts the right people in the right places at the right time, and I think Carrie Fisher being introduced to Carrie Fisher into this world by way of Star Wars is what a lot of us really needed. And I
Yeah.
think it's absolutely apropos and absolutely perfect that I think we start this conversation and really this celebration of all of these women in this franchise by talking about the one who started it all, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to start with the space mom, the princess, the general, the queen.
A
And
queen.
we are so glad that you guys joined us for this discussion tonight.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. It was just,
It really was. And we have so much more planned. So, what I would ask, and Ashley, I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would say if you're, so we're going to be doing the show every other week.
yes.
Are we? Yeah, we're at June 21st. I don't math well, so if that's what the screen says, we're going to go with June 21st. So we're
We
going
have
to be
Mark
doing the
in the
show.
chair, so he knows.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. We're going to be doing the show every other week on Wednesdays, 9 p.m., just like tonight. Both of us are, as you can see on socials, on Instagram. Please, by all means, if you have suggestions for characters, we have a long, long list going.
Yes.
But that certainly doesn't mean that we wouldn't be open to the idea of shuffling some characters around if there was
Yeah.
demand to have one of these conversations about your favorite character.
And
So,
even if it's in
um,
like book form, we'll do our best to do some research and scrounge it up for
I
you
will
guys.
read that book and we will talk
Yeah.
about it for an hour.
Oh my
Gosh darn it.
god. Yeah, totally. It will be like the new Daughters of the Galaxy book club. No,
There it is.
it's gonna be so much fun, and there's thankfully since Clone Wars was introduced, there's been an uptick in female characters in Star Wars,
Mm,
and we have so much content to talk about.
yeah, for sure. Remember, Spencer, you wanted this chaos, and here we are.
So, and
Um,
we are also kicking off the summer snips on Monday, June 12th, and it will go until the premiere of Ahsoka. Moved up Wednesday,
yes.
August 23rd instead of the 31st. Um, which is the best news we've gotten today, honestly. I'm so excited, and we'll have so much content for you. We're going to be
Yeah.
breaking down watch alongs, kicking off with a watch along of the Clone Wars movie
Hmm.
coming up soon. So, a brand new episode of Star Wars Rebels Revisited this Monday kicks it all
Hmm.
off. We'll have Ahsoka and what she means to Rebels and her little introduction into Rebels and Twilight of the Apprentice and all of that. So it's gonna
And
be a
then,
big
of course,
episode.
because, oh, sorry, I got all excited
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
because
Go ahead.
that's what I do, right?
Yeah, go
And then,
go
of course,
ahead.
because I am a merch queen, I'm obsessed with merch. And the VCN makes fun of me a lot because all I want are shirts with really funny quotes on it. Lucky for me, they're still making those shirts with really funny quotes on it. The Pride collection just dropped on the TeePublic shop.
Yes.
So if you want to go take a look on the teepublic.com/user/virtual-cantina, whew,
Yeah.
there are lots of fun new things there. And I believe, Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, we are still taking orders for the jerseys, the baseball jerseys, the
Yes.
sports
That
ball
is going
jerseys.
till next month. So you have a little bit more
Perfect.
time. You get the light side and the dark side baseball jerseys, and they look really cool, you guys. And there's
They
a
are really
lot of
cool.
pre-orders happening. So it is guaranteed to be made. Don't miss it. The VCN
Oh
watch
yeah, we're
along.
talking about Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And the VCN watch along of the Obi-Wan Kenobi panel from Celebration Europe premieres this Thursday. So watch it with the guys. And you get to see how adorable Vivian Lyra Blair is in person. This child is
So little,
lovely.
she's so small.
So
She's so
small.
small.
And I love how she's
So
sitting
sweet.
Indian style in the chair and she's just like, put a bubble on
Listen,
her, protect that child.
I will bodily throw myself in front of anybody that
She
harasses
is
that little
she
girl.
is
I'm
the new
obsessed with her.
Grogu in my life. Okay.
We just don't want a
Protect
puppeteer to like
Bebe.
throw her.
No, no, no,
No,
no, no, no, no,
we
no.
don't
No.
want that.
Um
Anyway,
we also yeah, we're just looking for any suggestions. The VCN needs your assistance with graphics. If you want to have any show ideas, it takes time, but things happen. Like, I mean, my God, look at this show.
here we are. We did
we're,
it.
we're the first spinoff. So,
Yeah, it's true. We're gonna get our own Disney Plus series
job
next.
opening available. Yes, we're serious, you guys. If you have any ideas, if you want to produce, if you want to help run graphics, like Jeff and Dave could really use some assistance in that. It's not a paid gig, it's an internship of sorts, but honestly, you get to do cool stuff like this. You get to be nerdy as possible, and it looks really awesome. And just speak up about things you love and get to do things in the fandom that you love. So I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. And the VCN after Thursday, they have um I'm trying to remember the Unified Force, I think, on Sunday. I just want to make sure I'm getting this
That sounds
right.
right.
Yeah.
These are things I should have
I'm
written
just
down
verifying.
because I barely know what day of the
Yeah.
week it is now.
I'm looking at the graphic. I swear it's here. Yeah.
Harboring
So
droids over
it's
there.
gonna be yeah. Oh my god, BB-8 is yelling at me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Unified Force
Unifying
on
Force
Sunday.
on Sunday. That is right. Thank you,
Perfect.
David. Oh, I I have all of my graphics broken down by like what it is, and then I can't find the folder. So that's what happens when you have a lot of crap on your phone. Um, but I am
Whew.
really, really excited for the rest of our series and where it's gonna go.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
we
great.
are
And
really excited. Hold that thought on who's coming next because we have some ideas. Lots of ideas.
mhm. And there's a lot going on. So our new episode will be Wednesday, June 21st. That'll be in 2 weeks. But you can join Mark and I this Monday for a new episode of Star Wars Rebels Revisited. We're working on some big things for you for the summer snips, and we
Yeah.
cannot wait. So
Well,
this is
I feel
fun.
like
This is
on
great.
that note, yeah, I know. I'm so excited to see you guys. Thank you so much for spending your Wednesday evening with us. And as they say, may the force be with you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you.
See you soon.